People keep telling me about Professor Allan Lichtman. Lichtman is his name. Lichtman. Sorry. But Allan Lichtman has this thing called the 13 keys. And what the 13 keys are is a bunch of bullet points about different things that a presidency could or could not be dealing with going into an election, or a candidate could be dealing with, that indicates their likelihood of success. From having an incumbency advantage being a key in your favor, to having a scandal being a key against you, a key that could be knocked down. And if you have a majority of the 13 keys, then you will, according to the model, even though it's not correlative, it is predictive. And I think that is a distinction that needs to be made right at the outset. And I want to make that distinction because I think a lot of people are going to be talking about the keys as gospel. And I think that the keys are not gospel. I think that they're just a lens to look at it. Like I like IR theory. Realism is a lens to look at IR. The 13 keys is one lens. If you get tied to the 13 keys and you treat it like gospel, then you're going to be looking at the election through a box, just through some looking glasses that restrict your vision. Just like if you were to look at the world just through a Mearsheimerist lens, it's just going to lead you to coming to a reductive viewpoint, making you say that, hey, the Russians can't invade Ukraine, or that if they do, the Ukrainians will immediately collapse, and ignoring domestic factors that I think are very important when trying to predict these outcomes. Point is, it would lead to a reductive framework, but again, it is not correlative. It is predictive. And we can actually go through the 13 keys before we start. 13 keys, Allan Lichtman. If we could, do we got like some bullet points on what these keys are? Here they are. We just go through them quickly. Number 1, party mandate. After the midterm elections, the incumbent party holds more seats in the U.S. House of Representatives than it did after the previous midterm elections. Number 2, contest. There is no serious contest for the incumbent party nomination. So this right here is something that if there was to be a contest between Gretchen Whitmer, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, and it got vicious at the DNC convention while the handover was happening, the handover of power, if Kamala wasn't not necessarily anointed, but it didn't go smoothly, then that could be a key that could be knocked down. Incumbency. The incumbent party candidate is the sitting president. 4th, third party. There is no significant third party or independent campaign. 5th, short-term economy. The economy is not in recession during the election campaign. 6th, long-term economy. Real per capita economic growth during the term equals or exceeds mean growth during the previous 2 terms. This is something that Biden certainly has. This is a key in his favor. So is incumbency. So is contest. And I think actually party mandate, I don't actually know if that really works or if that counts, because the Democrats did lose seats in the House, and they did lose the House, but they also performed much better during the midterms than is the historical precedent during the first midterms of an incumbent presidency. Policy change. The incumbent administration affects major changes in national policy. A social unrest. There is no sustained social unrest during the term. Scandal. The incumbent administration is untainted by major scandal. Foreign military failure. The incumbent administration suffers no major failure in foreign and military affairs. This one, I think, is still a big question mark. Foreign military success. You kind of get the idea. Also a big question mark. Incumbent charisma. The incumbent party candidate is charismatic and or a national hero. This is one that Biden certainly does not have. And challenger charisma. The challenging party candidate is not charismatic or a national hero. He is charismatic, but he's also not like a national hero, and he's charismatic to a certain like smaller base. So it depends on like how you define charisma, but I would say it's not necessarily something you could give to Trump because it's charismatic to a certain base. So those are the 13 keys as defined in his keys to the White House model. And so that's that predictive system. The majority of the keys ends up with Joe Biden, meaning that Joe Biden would need to lose at least a few more keys, not one, but like a few, like 1, 2, 3. I think it was like 3 or 4 keys in order for him to not have the majority of keys. And from this predictive, not correlative, but predictive model, lose the advantage going into November. Now, Allan Lichtman has said before that in this model, he is not saying that just because he has the keys right now, he's going to have the keys going into election day. He said that he wants to make his final prediction like after the DNC convention in about a month, because a lot can happen in that time, and then he's going to make his final predictions then. But the keys obviously could change, and therefore the predictive model's prediction could change as time goes on. As for the accuracy of this model, it has predicted, I think, every major election for the last 40 years. I think the only one it didn't was the 2000 election. I think it got that one wrong, but obviously the 2000 election seems like a somewhat special circumstance. Anyway, Cenk Uygur believes that Joe Biden is going to drop out. That means not even a question if he's going to drop out, that he is going to drop out, and that if he doesn't, I mean, like, he doesn't say if he doesn't, he just says there's no chance he can win, period. So let's listen to these two go at it, because I hear a lot of people in my chat wanting me to talk to Allan Lichtman, and Cenk Uygur is somebody that can get quite bombastic, so I'm interested in how this can go. Plus, Allan Lichtman's also a historian, and I love to see historians included more in the public conversation.
I'm now going to discuss / debate the issue whether Joe Biden should stay in the race and he has any chance of winning or not with Professor Allan Lichtman. He's got 13 keys. Professor Lichtman, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and to have this opportunity to be on your channel.
Yep, and he says he's gotten the last 10 out of 10 elections right. We're going to discuss that in a second. But Professor Lichtman asked me to start the proceedings, lay out my case so that he can counter it. So I will do that, no problem. So first, let's go through the polling right now to catch you guys up on the context and where we are. And then I will ask Professor Lichtman about his keys. So first, let's look at the polling. Overall, this is the aggregate in polls from Real Clear Politics. And what we've got here is Joe Biden at 36.8%. And disapproval is at 57.3%.
Okay, but can we also Trump disapproval rating? Because I saw a recent poll that had Trump's disapproval actually lower than Biden's. I don't know if that's necessarily the case in every poll, but let's see Trump's unapproval rating for comparison. Is this the same? These 538 average, disapproval 57, disapproval 53, favorable 41. Now this is an aggregate, so it's different than individual polls. There are some individual polls and some recent ones as well that have it. So Donald Trump's actually more unfavorable than Joe Biden, but this is the aggregate, meaning that some polls have might have Joe Biden as slightly more favorable than Donald Trump, but the majority, as up to this point, collectively have Donald Trump as slightly more favorable than Joe Biden. But there were some recent ones as well that I think should be indicative. Just saying that not all the polls reflect that. But it's, I think, a 5-point difference on the favorability scale.
So his approval is, let's be generous and say 37. That's a disaster. As I have pointed out many, many times, it is almost never the case that if you're in the 30s as an incumbent that you could win. We'll come back to that issue in a second. Now let's take a look at how the polling is going in the specific race between Trump and Biden. Again, Real Clear Politics average here. I'm sorry, the earlier chart was from 538. This is from Real Clear Politics. You see Trump has an aggregate 3-point lead, and he is winning in every single poll. Important point.
I will say, though, if you look at the 538 model, and I think this is something that, you know, if you're going to use 538 as a source, as an aggregator, then it would also make sense to use the 538 like model if you trust them as a source. I guess like aggregation and their model are different. You could say, well, I trust the poll aggregate. I trust the polls, but I don't trust their predictive model. But if you check their model, they say that their odds of winning are about even, or I guess Biden slightly ahead, but it's about even. It's within the margin of error. So just saying that the same website also has this, but that all depends on how much you believe in Nate Silver's predictive model. And Nate Silver himself thinks that Joe Biden should drop out, not because he thinks that Joe Biden can't win, but that he doesn't have the best chance out of the Democrats of beating Donald Trump.
Here, guys, is that the Democratic candidate has to win by about 5 points in order to win the Electoral College. So that means that Joe Biden is, in effect, down 8 points, not 3 points in aggregate. Remember, he won by 4.5 points last time in the popular vote, but barely squeaked out an Electoral College victory with only 44,000 votes, making the difference in 3 swing states. Finally, in terms of the
how about if we're going to have Kamala run, to keep the Biden camp happy, we still keep Biden on the ticket. A different Biden, Hunter Biden, Kamala Biden, Hunter Biden as VP. continue the legacy. Okay, if Jared Kushner gets to be Middle East peace advisor, Hunter Biden gets to have parties in the White House. Okay, let's keep the legacy going.
Those aforementioned swing states, let's look at the Real Clear Politics average on those as well. Oh, look at that. Trump is winning every swing state, and some very comfortably. The fact that Nevada is now 5.2 in aggregate on Trump's side is devastating. That was trending very much towards the Democrats. Pennsylvania has been solidly blue in my opinion, for a long time. I know it's in the swing state category lately because of the changes that are happening in the Midwest. But again, a 5.3% lead there for Trump is devastating. And I'll leave it at that for now. I got one more poll for Professor Lichtman in a second. But Professor Lichtman, you have your 13 keys.
Correct.
Yeah, and you're going to tell us about them. But
correct.
One of the top critiques of your analysis, including by me, Professor Lichtman, is it's not that your keys are crazy or off or wrong. It's that you're too wedded to them as end-all, be-all, and it appears that you're making a problem or a mistake in thinking that correlation equals causation. And I'll tell you more specifically why I think you're making that mistake as we go on. But I got to let you respond now.
Thanks for watching. Our audience has helped build TYT.
Okay, Anna. Okay, come on.
Support our work and join us at tyt.com/team.
Thank you very much. And this is a debate that should never have happened because there is no comparison between my record of predicting elections and the record of Cenk and all the other critics of Joe Biden.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so his opening line in this debate is that this debate shouldn't even be happening. Like I am above this. I just, you know what I just feel like? I feel like I am one of Cenk's Roman soldiers, okay, in his legion marching through the forests of ancient Germania. Okay, I'm just like marching around, click clanking. I'm tired. I've been carrying this around, and I just heard like a battle horde in the forest, and the trees are speaking some weird German tongue, and I am not happy. Cenk is. I'm just saying that's a battle cry if I ever heard one. I feel like we're in for something. Okay, let's just go. I'm sorry. I can feel the tenor of conversation immediately shifting.
Those critics have zero, I repeat, zero track record in predicting elections, including Cenk.
Including Cenk. Oh, the specific call out. He was included in the group call out, but then he specified Cenk. Okay.
In his video, he said he predicted 2 elections, 2012, which he did not document, and 2016, which he did try to document. But one of his followers pointed out to me his documentation was fundamentally misleading. I did my research. His documentation came from July 2016. And as his follower indicated, he then changed his prediction of Trump. And I found the clip. Just 3 weeks before the election, Cenk predicted that Hillary Clinton would win because she was so far ahead in critical state polls, the kinds he's citing right now.
What's interesting about this, and mind you, I'm on this debate, I'm like 50-50. If anything, I'm actually might be starting to lean towards like 52-55%, like replace Biden, 45% keep him in. I'm still divided on this, so I'm legitimately sitting here as somebody who wants to reflect on this and better choose my position, right? Who's legitimately reflecting here. But my God, the research, he went up there and researched into Cenk called out Allan Lichtman's 13 keys on a previous video. Allan heard it. He did his digging, and he's comparing his predictive model with a better track record of success to Cenk's. And so he's just right at the start here, just like questioning the credibility of Cenk himself to even do election predicting, saying like, hey, like a broken clock is right twice a day, but you ain't even been right once, Cenk. You're not a broken clock, you're a smashed clock. That's the reading I'm getting from this conversation. And it is a brutal opening. It's aggressive because Cenk's main opener was just focusing on the polls. And I imagine if Cenk is opening on the polls, and then he's going to like go on to, okay, now let's talk about the age issue. And he's like, each section's like building his argument. But Allan Lichtman like pushed all that to the side and just opened up like, first off, I'm credible, you're not. He's going straight for the metaphorical jugular.
And I caught a clip of Cenk after the election in which he said Hillary Clinton should reasonably have been expected to be president-elect because the polls pointed that way. He never claimed to have predicted. One last thing,
also, when Hillary was doing her best, it was after the debates, when she was polling about 8-9 points up, like some of the right-wing polls have Trump at right now. Again, not saying Biden is going to, I'm just saying that polls are a snapshot in time. And just like this debate moment is a snapshot, when Trump was convicted, that was a snapshot. And in the next 4 months, there will be many more snapshots. It's a run, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
She said Hillary Clinton should reasonably have been expected to be president-elect because the polls pointed that way. He never claimed to have predicted a Donald Trump victory, which would have been a huge feather in his cap. But beyond that, his record or prediction is even more suspect. He predicted Bernie Sanders would be the Democratic nominee in 2020 and would beat Donald Trump.
Hey, man, we were all pretty high on the Bernie train after the Nevada win, I gotta say.
He said that Joe Biden, if he was the nominee, would have no chance to beat Donald Trump. Now, let's look at some of those polls, and I'll get to my keys in a moment. Cenk is fighting the last war. He's not up to date on the polls. A whole new series of polls have come out in the last 2 days, which fundamentally contradict Cenk's argument. We had a Washington Post ABC poll that just came out, and it said Biden's debate did not shift the race at all, that it remains a dead heat between Biden and Trump, whether you look at them one-to-one or throw in the other candidates. But even perhaps more revealing is the approval numbers that came out today in the Washington Post ABC polls. Trump at 34% approval, 59% disapproval, a 25-point underwater result. Biden at 42% approval, not 36, 50% disapproval, 8% underwater.
And the numbers he's talking about has Biden like above Trump on like 6, 7, 8 points on the approval rating. Like Trump's at like 32, Biden's at like 42 for approval rating. Or I think it's like 34 for approval on Trump, 42 for Biden on approval on this one poll. But what Cenk was pointing at the 538 approval, unapproval rating aggregate. So what this guy is saying is that this recent polling contradicts the aggregate. This recent polling is more indicative of recent trends, while I assume Cenk would say is that's one poll. You cannot boil it down all to 1 or 2 polls. This is the entire aggregate. You haven't made a strong enough case to say in the last 2 or 3 days, or there was something that has changed as of recent that would fundamentally shift so many people on Biden or keep Biden ahead this much with approval. Like he could just like question the credibility of the polls or the sample size, etc.
In other words, Trump is 3 times more underwater than Biden. And then another poll just came out of the swing states. It was so startling. Fox News, hardly a pro-Biden outlet, had a big headline saying, surprise swing state polls. It looked at 3 states where Biden had been behind, as you point out. It's now after the debate, and Biden is now ahead in Michigan and Wisconsin. He's trailing in Arizona, but he's in striking distance. But as we know, polls months before the election have no predictive value. The keys do. They've been right 10 out of 10 since 1984. The dean of American political science, Gerald Pomper, said they were the most successful prediction system of our time, right in 2016, and going all the way back to the 80s. I twice keynoted the International Forecasting Summit, and the American Political Science Association called the keys the classic model of forecasting. And they show why what Cenk and the critics are proposing would lead the Democrats likely down to the primrose path of defeat. The way my 13 keys work is if 6 or more go against the White House party, they are predicted losers. If Biden runs, the Democrats tick off incumbency, he's the president. They tick off the contest key because 87% of primary voters voted for him. That's who put him in as nominee, not members of Congress. So that means of the remaining 11 keys, 6 would have to fall to predict his defeat. We follow the advice of Cenk and the critics. They lose the incumbency key. They lose the contest key because there's no consensus successor. And that means only 4 more keys would have to fall. Final point, you know, Cenk and the critics say there's some great candidate out there who's going to do so much better than Joe Biden. False. Emerson College, a very respected independent polling operation, tested that. They looked at head-to-head contests and they found again.
Oh, I was muted the whole time. Damn.
A curd is a curd.
Fake Alec Kyle Parker has donated $5. DOOD, you're muted.
Thank you for the $5. I never thought about it like that. I mean, me too, man. I thought that was pretty, I thought that was a pretty enlightening statement. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I don't feel like saying it again because it was just so enlightening. Or were we?
Tested that. They looked at head-to-head contests and they found.
Oh, my point was that there's some internal polling from the DNC that has other candidates doing better than Biden, including Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, etc. And like we said, with there was like a recent ABC poll, or I think it was an NBC poll, that had Kamala Harris up 3 and had Joe Biden down 1. And so again, it depends on which poll you pick, and it depends at what time you're picking the poll, if because obviously the aggregates are a little outdated, and they have some slack attached to them, just in how long it takes for like the aggregates to react compared to individual polls from more recent dates. But there are polls that have other people outside of Joe Biden performing better. It's just not all of them, and it's just a few of them. But if that becomes more of them, and that becomes the standard that most of them have them performing better, don't be surprised if the calls that get Joe Biden out before the DNC in 30 days, the National Democratic Convention, that is, gets louder and louder and louder.
Again, Donald Trump in a dead heat with Joe Biden 50, Donald Trump 50, and they looked at 9 of the most common alternative candidates, and they all trailed Donald Trump by 5 points to 10 points.
All right. So, first of all,
before we do Cenk, I need to plug in my computer. I just realized the power's not doing well. Be right back. I am back.
Points to 10 points.
All right. So, first of all, look, I'll handle this super quickly because this isn't about me or you. It's about getting the audience the right information to figure out what's actually going to happen here. So in terms of my predictions, brother, I've been super honest about all of them. I know you think it's a gotcha, but we've talked about it on air a million times. So for example, in 2016, I said in July, at the height of Hillary Clinton, that Donald Trump was going to win. And why? Because I said the country's in a populist mood. She's the most establishment candidate. So I look at these trends, these patterns, etc.
I would have to go check the record, because Allan is saying that Cenk, at the height of Hillary Clinton's popularity, said that Hillary was going to win and Trump was going to lose. Cenk is saying that in July, he was actually saying something different. Was that like a prediction, like mid-campaign, that changed? Or was that is Allan just completely making it up? Which I would find hard to believe that he completely making it up. I would have to go back and check.
Now, on election day, you've got certain polling, and the polling is likely to be true, and it was true. She did win the popular vote, but we said at the very beginning of that broadcast, myself and Bam Banquets, we said, look, Trump's got about a 30-35% chance of winning. So all these folks like Huffington Post had it at 98%. We're like, that is nonsense. Trump definitely had.
Wait, so he said he had a 30% chance of winning. If you're saying Trump had a 30% chance of winning, that doesn't sound like you're predicting Trump winning. If I said Joe Biden has a 20% chance of winning, that's not me predicting Joe Biden winning. That's me acknowledging the chances of Joe Biden still winning while saying that it's likely that he's not going to win. That would not be considered you predicting Donald Trump as the winner.
Has a chance of winning despite the fact that it's election day and Hillary Clinton has what appears to be a large lead. So when you look at the trends, I don't know anyone who predicted that Bernie Sanders could catch Hillary Clinton back in 2013. Back in 2013 when everybody thought it was crazy. But we can go on and on.
Wait, that's not what he said. He said 2020. You're talking about, oh, nobody said that Bernie was going to catch Hillary in 2020. He wasn't talking about 2016. He was talking about 2020. And by the way, there was a moment when all of the Bernie guys, and me included, thought Bernie was actually going to be a nominee. After he won in Nevada, the election betting markets had Bernie over 50% to be the Democratic nominee for president. It's been a while. People have forgotten it. There's been a whole presidency between them. But in that moment, man, the Democratic socialist left of the progressive faction of the party, they really thought they were in the upswing, and Nevada was propelling them up, up into high hopes. And it was South Carolina that crushed those dreams. And I can say that directly as somebody who canvassed for Bernie in South Carolina. My God, that saved the Biden campaign. And that was after back-to-back Biden L's. It was Biden took an L in New Hampshire, Biden took an L in Iowa, Biden took an L in Nevada, and it wasn't even like he was like second place, and then he was in third place. Like, it wasn't until South Carolina that Biden rebounded and then became the nominee and then won the presidency.
About our records all day long. It's not at all relevant. What is relevant, though, Professor Lichtman, is whether you can be honest and objective instead of trying to prove yourself right. So, for example, I looked up, hey, you said that I was getting it wrong, that no incumbent in the 30s had ever won, and you pointed out Harry Truman.
What I said.
What did you
say? What I said was, if you take outside the keys and just look at history, forget the keys. Since 1900, no incumbent party has ever won when there is an open seat and a contested nomination, whereas when there is a sitting president running and no contest, they've won the great majority of times.
Yeah, no, that's your key. I'm saying that if an incumbent is in the 30s, he almost always loses. But to be fair, what I was going to say is that I was saying always, but actually I looked it up so that it was more granular. I found the more granular polls throughout the entire year. And in 1968, Lyndon Johnson.
Uygur 137 has donated $5. Why is Truth Social is banned in UA from website site? I always though pendoses are pro-free speech. Now I doubt it.
Why is Truth Social banned in Ukraine from the website side? I think it's region blocked. I don't think Truth Social is available really anywhere outside of the United States. Is it? Because I remember trying to access it in Europe and it didn't work there either, but I forget which European country it was. I think it might just be region blocked. There's a bunch of stuff that's region blocked in Ukraine. For example, like I couldn't do any of my sports betting in Ukraine. I was gonna bet on that Chinese boxer to beat Deontay Wilder, and I would have made some money because I was right in my prediction. But I think it was DraftKings blocked me, so I couldn't do it. It was a real bummer. But I don't think it's a censorship thing. It might be like a regional block thing. I don't really know how much bandwidth Truth Social has. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's a censorship thing. I haven't heard anything about it.
Had not Lyndon Johnson, Nixon had fallen into the 30s.
But I mean, I don't know. Truth Social has a lot of truth on it. That's all in the name after all. So maybe the Ukrainian government just doesn't want the people to see truths from Donald Trump. That'll convince them to lay down their arms.
But Hubert Humphrey was in the 20s. And so my point here, Professor Lichtman, is that my key is if you're in the 30s, you're toast. But if I was looking at that 1968 election, I would have said, yeah, my key is that if you're in the 30s and you're an incumbent, you're definitely going to lose.
I like that. Cenk is like his key. It's a bunch of keys that make a general model, and so you have a bunch of things that help you make a prediction, like multiple indicators. And so, but Cenk has now boiled it down to, okay, well, if those are your keys, my key is your numbers suck, you lose. So, Okay, it's simple. That's for sure. It's kind of the whole point of the keys is that there's multiple predictors. If Cenk wanted to do this properly, he'd have to make multiple predictors, not just, hey, Biden's numbers are bad. That's not enough to make a prediction, because guess what? Trump's numbers are also bad. His unapproval ratings are also very, very high.
Except his opponent is in the 20s. So it makes a difference when you look at the context and the situation, and you don't seem to be open to looking at the context. So let me ask you some extremes to see if it jars your 13 keys loose. So what if your brother...
I doubt it.
Okay, I got you. And you're saying raw number, right? Raw number, whoever has more keys out of the 13 wins, right?
Keys, yes.
Yes, that's right.
6
Okay.
keys and you're out.
Okay, so if let's say that Biden has 7 or 8 or 9 of the keys on his side, right? Or any candidate, forget Biden. But every day he comes out and does a press conference and punches himself in the face. And people are like, whoa, what the hell's going on? The president.
This is hypothetical. Just why even make it like this silly? Just keep with the hypothetical as is. Just be like, what if every day the president went out and and even though this isn't the case, but make it the worst case scenario. Biden just comes out and he's like, this bill smells like burnt toast. Like it just, I mean, he isn't like that at this stage. If you watch the presser, he was being asked back-to-back difficult questions by journalists, and he mixed up names I think twice. But generally speaking, he was able to answer the questions and give detail. It just took him time to get the answers out. He's not at that stage, but assuming that he was, you could just keep it in the realm of reality. Why does he need to? Yes, I assume if Joe Biden went out and he took his ding-a-ling out and swung it around and said, my ding-a-ling, my ding-a-ling, I think that would affect his chances of winning. But these models are not really made for far out scenarios where Joe Biden is exposed as being involved in a pedophile cabal alien plot. Well, actually, I think that would hit the scandal key. But still, it's meant for what you would see in a standard election. I think you could say extreme cases could stress the model, but just talk about the case that we have. Don't make it this ridiculous. Yeah, obviously, if Joe Biden goes out and just yells the N-word over and over and over again for an hour on stage during the debate when they asked him about infrastructure, just completely unrelated, yeah, I think that would probably shoot his chances and the keys kind of fall apart. But that has not happened, and so just I don't know why just make it more believable so you can at least tussle with the keys. Okay, so you said that in your 13 keys model that if he has more than 7 keys, then they win. Well, okay, let's say your presidential nominee has all 13 keys, but then he gets shot in the head. Didn't think about that, did you, Mr. Lichtman?
This lost his mind. Do the keys still say that he's going to win?
Well, this is something I've never heard before, the punch in the face theory of how to predict presidential elections. The truth is, as I said, your predictions haven't worked, and there's a simple...
No, Professor Lichtman, it's a question to you.
I think hypotheticals can work. I mean, I'm not against answering crazy hypotheticals, but this is a obviously there's certain things a candidate could do that would smash the keys, but even but let's be in the realm of possibility here, be in the realm of, for example, we have a bunch of tools for tornado detection and weather detection. If somebody, and they were okay, well, you think these are good and indicative of, how the weather's going to be? Well, what if a scientist developed a weather gun and then when he clicked it, it created a storm? Could your model predict that? No, my model could not predict that.
Don't worry about you can say my predictions suck. I don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm giving you an extreme example. Or the candidate comes out and every day punches a new baby in the face. Are you still going, nope, I'm sticking with the keys. 9 out of 13.
What type of baby? Is it a baby from a demographic we need to win? If it was a Mormon baby, if Biden was, okay, let's not touch this conversation. If Trump went after, just say if I don't know, I think Trump could hit a few babies and he'd probably get away with it. He would just have to pick the babies wisely.
13 keys, the keys will determine.
Of course, I'm sticking with the keys because they've been right for 40 years. You can't predict elections from this kind of off the top of your head speculation, which is why you've been wrong so many times. It doesn't work.
Okay, so I mean, I can't believe you said if a candidate punches a baby every day in the face, he's still going to win if he's got the keys. Okay,
I'm not going to respond to such an absurd.
Okay, let's make it a little less absurd. Everybody thinks that, not everybody, to be clear, 72% of Americans think that he's not mentally healthy enough to be, to run and to be president. And you said that was incorrect. It is correct. We can put up the poll if you like.
Sorry, somebody sent me a link. Sorry, your brass eye segment is not available in Ukraine. More censorship from Zelensky banned that YouTube video. I'm sorry.
Percent of Americans think that he's not mentally healthy enough to be, to run and to be president. And you said that was incorrect. It is correct. We can put up the poll if you like. And in that scenario, he's not that far away from Americans viewing him as Dianne Feinstein. And even today, right before you came out, breaking news, he's at the NATO summit and called Zelensky Putin. So what if he was Feinstein and they're just wheeling him around?
By the way, like, him talking about that as evidence of they're just wheeling him around, he doesn't know what's going on. Biden, if you watch the clip, he mixed up Zelensky and Putin's name because he mentioned both Zelensky and Putin in the speech, mixed them up, and then corrected himself. Trump mixed up Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi's name 5 times in a row and then said Nikki Haley was in charge of security on the Capitol. Now, personally, I don't think one mix-up of names is necessarily indicative of breakdown to the point of dementia. It could be indicative of messing up on your words. It could be indicative of being tired. It could be indicative of many things, but the idea that we're going to jump from, oh, he slipped up onto his word to he's like Dianne Feinstein, he's going out the door, he has dementia. It's just a big jump. It's a big jump. It's an unreasonable jump. And while I understand that it's eye-catching and it's like fun to jump on right now, it's not, I think, like an honest way to portray the situation. You could talk about, oh, like Joe Biden's slower. He talks slower. He messes up his words every more once in a while. But the way that Joe Biden, the way that, see, oh, look at that. I guess I have dementia. The way that Cenk Uygur talks about Joe Biden is as if he's like completely lost. There's like nothing left there. There's like, when Kevin McCarthy just like a year or two ago was talking about Joe Biden as somebody who was still sharp in private meetings. That's the Republican leader in the House at the time. And so it'd be one thing if someone's saying Joe Biden can't run a good campaign. I can agree with that. Joe Biden fumbles in the speeches. I can agree with that. Joe Biden isn't the same public speaker that he used to be. I can agree with that. But the idea that they're going to have to wheel him around and he's not going to know what's going on anymore, like that, I just question on his face. I question on his face because that's when it turns into alarmism. And that's what I think that is right there, alarmism. That is, again, you could be definitely concerned about his ability to win, but his idea that he's like at these meetings and he has no clue what's going on, that's not true. If you listen to what he said about NATO, even if he literally is half into dementia, Joe Biden has forgotten more about foreign policy and about NATO than Donald Trump has ever known. And I'm not saying that's in particularly glazed Joe Biden, because I disagree with his approach regarding Ukraine up to 22 invasion. I still disagree with him when it comes to long-range strikes on Russian bases. I disagree with him on a whole bunch of stuff. But that's just the case from a long experience, from like a long like track record of experience. So it's just like, for me, like, I just think that's slightly alarmist.
In like the late Feinstein days. And remember, they were pretending she was fine and that she could still be senator. So if Biden is in that shape, would you still say, nope, I got my keys. Keys are going to determine it?
I'm not going to respond to these absurdities, but I will respond to your real data, the only data you presented, and that is that 72% thought he was not healthy or had the mental acuity, was too old to run. That does not mean that they will not vote for him.
Hey, Dylan, how can I donate without PayPal? I think you can get a tier sub, which doesn't necessarily require PayPal. If not, I also have Patreon, but like, I think there's also like YouTube memberships, but that means less money gets to the channel. So I would say like tier sub on the website, or like maybe the Patreon would be the way to go. But it's up to you, buddy. I appreciate it. If you can support the channel, you can support the channel. I appreciate it. If not, it's okay. I understand. We all been there.
That's the bottom line. And as we saw, the recent polls, despite all your attacks on him and all the Democrats' attacks
your
on
attacks.
him, and
He's pointing the finger at him.
all the journalists' attacks on him have not dented his prospects to win, according to your criteria, which are the polls. And
Again, but my problem would be with Allan Lichtman. He's choosing a few polls where Biden has done well, but there's other polls that are also recent that has Biden performing worse than Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris performing better than Joe Biden. And those polls are recent. Like, 1 second. Kamala Harris poll. This debate is from July 11th. So this is from yesterday. This is yesterday's debate. Kamala Harris scores double poll boost over Donald Trump. This is from 17 hours ago. So this is from basically the same day. And the Biden campaign is looking into it, by the way. They are testing her strength against Donald Trump, which makes sense given the circumstances.
I certainly haven't changed my criteria with the keys to the White House. And by the way, Donald Trump has committed way worse gaffes than Joe Biden. He confused Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi. How could you possibly do that? He didn't know the name of his own doctor, who's been his physician for so many years. He has gone off on the most...
Professor Lichtman,
last sentence. So let me finish my sentence.
Yeah.
And he's gone off on the most incoherent of rants, including, sharks and electric boats. So you got to, you say your system is based on looking at campaigns and candidates, but you only focus on Biden. You don't focus on Trump, who beyond that has said he's going to be a dictator on day one. And every dictator in the history of the world who's been a dictator on day one has been a dictator forever. So look at Trump. Don't just focus on Biden.
But Professor Lichtman, we focus on Trump till the cows come home. I did 99 segments on loser Donald. I think Donald Trump, his IQ is in the single digits. I think he's a borderline lunatic. But the Republican voters have super clearly said, we love that lunatic, and you cannot move his base. And currently, that lunatic is beating your candidate. Oops. Okay, so last couple of things here, Professor Lichtman. Look, I'm not trying...
Biden's not my candidate.
Well, it certainly sounds like it. And
I predicted Trump. You didn't in 2016.
Okay, brother. Okay.
Reagan in 1984.
Okay, you're the best. You're the best. Okay, so listen, brother.
Thank you.
You're the best.
But I'm trying to see if you have an open mind and if you're being honest with yourself, let alone the audience, because I think you're leading him in a very wrong...
Rosetum 287 has donated $5. Sharks and Electric Boats supports the channel.
True. Can we look just quickly, just very quickly. Sharks and Electric Boats Trump. Can we get this? Here we go.
They were saying the other night, the shark. They were saying, oh, sharks, we have to protect them. I said, wait a minute, wait. They actually want to remove all the seals in order to save the shark. I said, wait a minute, don't you have it the other way around? That's true. I'm not a big fan of sharks either. I don't know how many votes am I going to lose. I have people calling me up, sir, we have a fund to save the shark. It's called Save the Shark. I say, no, thank you. I have other things I can contribute to.
But this isn't the right one. Why does he have so many shark quotes? How does he have more than one shark quote? Here it is.
I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful...
So what he's talking about is an electric boat and the dangers...
Morally corrupt.
Bankrupt man. Real Sugar 420. Thank you for the primer. Thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that. He's talking about the dangers of electric boats. And sharks.
I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there.
All been there.
By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it.
I saw some woman in the background nodding her head, and I'm just imagining, like, you go to a Trump rally, is everything just like a deeper truth? Like, man, they do be a lot of shark attacks lately. When there wasn't a lot of shark attacks when Trump was president. Much better relation, much more deterrence against the sharks.
By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that?
Look at that lady to his left just nodding like, yeah, you're telling the truth now, Trump. You don't let those sharks off the hook.
Shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. They said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards. Or here, do I get electrocuted if the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking? Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted? I'll take electrocution every single time. I'm not getting near the shark. So we're going to end that. We're going to end it for boats.
Just going after electric boats. This is a wild. Anyway, he's a very intelligent man. He's a very intelligent man, and his brain is high functioning.
Wrong direction right now. So when you say, hey, the last couple of polls came out and they're not so bad, you understand that it's the aggregate.
T.S. Evans 88 has donated $5. This is to help pay tuition for your master's in sharks and batteries at MIT.
Thank you. Now that President Trump, the former president and current shadow president of the United States, has brought attention to this crisis, I feel like I need to go back to college and study and dedicate myself to this good cause.
With yourself, let alone the audience, because I think you're leading him in a very wrong direction right now. So when you say, hey, the last couple of polls came out and they're not so bad, you understand that it's the aggregate of the polls, because I can show you a poll where Biden is losing by 12 in Nevada. So cherry picking polls is wrong. You know that, right?
You're wrong there, of course. Polls are snapshots, and they change overnight. So you can't rely on polls taken a week or 2
So the
weeks.
very last poll is the only one that should count, you think?
The most relevant polls, if polls are relevant at all, because they change so rapidly, are the most recent polls, and they're not close. Trump underwater 25 points.
You think it's not close, Allan Lichtman? You sound.
287 has donated $5. Dylan is a stable shark genius.
Finally, getting credit for what I always deserve credit for. Thank you for the $5.
Underwater 25 points.
You think it's not close, Allan Lichtman? You sound like you're on a different planet. You think it's not close that Biden's going to blow out Trump?
Nationally.
You know he might resign tomorrow. Are you aware of anything that's going on? The NATO presser is going to be a disaster. He already called Zelensky Putin. He's already got 8 defections at the beginning of the show, and 1 came in during the middle.
Lichtman looks so cold, man. He looks like got killer eyes, man. He looks so cold. This thing, I got looking into his eyes is how I get the same feeling I get when I was looking into the eyes of the Japanese interrogator at the start of Call of Duty World at War. You think because you don't talk, you are strong? I could see Allan Lichtman telling me that tied while I'm tied to a chair. Those are cold eyes listening to the Cenk go off.
He's already got 8 defections at the beginning of the show, and 1 came in during the middle saying he should resign the presidency. And you think that the aggregate polls don't count. That's amazing. And then you mentioned the polls of the other candidates doing worse. You understand that the other candidates don't have as much name recognition now, but on election day would have massive and overwhelming name recognition, and that the polls are skewed by the fact that that they don't have much name recognition now. You acknowledge that, right?
No, a lot of these candidates have enormous name recognition. Al Gore was.
Now, okay, let me throw out there, like, when we say it's not close, like, it is true that the unfavorability poll that he's talking about, it's not relatively close, but the broad selection of polling has the race still pretty close, and the majority of those polls still have Biden down, including certain recent polls like the one that has Kamala Harris up 3 points. Like, I agree with the critique to a point of Cenk that the 3 keys could be more reductive, and that for certain scenarios it does not account for, like the face punching president scenario, even though it's ridiculous. Like if Joe Biden, like there's a ton of like untested scenarios during elections. You only get elections every 4 years, presidential elections that is. So you have like a certain, like you have a controlled sample size, but you only have so many elections under certain different political environments with different contentious issues, different types of candidates from different regions of the countries appealing to different constituencies. And there's so many different factors that, yeah, you can make the argument that the 13 keys are restrictive. Cenk hasn't made that argument very well. He hasn't gone after any of the keys and said, hey, why don't you have these keys? And the only key he proposed was, well, polling number. That's not like adding an extra key. That's not, that wasn't particularly suggestive, but I do agree vaguely with the idea that the 13 keys could be too restrictive, and I agree with the idea that the polling is especially close right now, and I don't want the polling to be close. I want the polling to be on the Democratic side, even if I know that it's a snapshot in time. I don't want to feel those nerves with the polls, even though all elections come with nerves, and I want the candidate that is the most likely to win, not just one that still has a chance of winning. And that is the question that I'm trying to get to the answer to. But I don't think Cenk is doing a really relatively good job at all of knocking down any of the keys or explaining why they're not a good model. But I do agree that like Allan Lichtman is, I don't want to say he's picking out certain polls because these are more recent polls, and there have been other polls that have come out since then. But other recent polls do not say the numbers that he is saying.
One of them, Hillary Clinton,
Wes Moore, Andy Bashir. People don't know these. But you see, that's what I'm saying, Professor Lichtman. It doesn't seem like you're being objective. You know that Wes Moore doesn't have enough name recognition. That's why he does poorly in the poll. Don't you know that? He's not
in that poll. Of course not. I agree with that. But certainly Hillary Clinton, Al Gore.
Nobody wants Hillary Clinton to run. Nobody's arguing for Hillary Clinton.
On the other side, they have not been subjected to all of these attacks that have been relentlessly launched for a month against Joe Biden, despite all those attacks.
I get, like, when we hear about attacks on Kamala, it's like she's ditzy, she's cackly, she repeats sayings all the time, which if repeating slogans is your attack against Harris, oh boy, Trump supporters, do I have something for you. My gosh, do you think you just fell off the coconut tree? Come on. But like, these attacks, I think, are not going to hold up too well in the general election. They're gonna have to attack her on something else, because like, you can call her ditzy all you want, but if Kamala has to debate Donald Trump and she talks policy or tries to drag him down any policy and succeeds, you can call her ditzy all you want. She can drag Trump down in a policy conversation, which is why Trump has to, in a debate with someone like her, avoid that like the devil. Not to mention, like, I mean, like, she can give a more enthusiastic campaign than somebody like Joe Biden due to the fact that she's younger, and then she can make her case better. But the idea that replacing with somebody like Gavin Newsom or any of these relative unknowns, that once the people get to know them, they're going to like them, that's what Ron DeSantis thought, Cenk. Ron DeSantis thought that once he got out there, since Donald Trump had lost to Joe Biden and he hasn't, and he has a successful, for the conservatives and what the, you know, the policy priorities they care about, a successful policy record in Florida, that he was going to do gangbusters. He was going to do great for the Republican Party. He was going to bring them off to new heights. And then he flopped. Trump called him a kitty diddler, and that was the end of that. So how do we know that that isn't going to be the same result for Gavin Newsom? How do we know that's not going to be the same result for, I mean, I'm from Maryland, but not the same result. I mean, I doubt we'll get the second part of that for Wes Moore or J.B. Pritzker, Sherrod Brown, whoever, Shirley Temple, whoever they get to run for president.
A curd is a curd.
Rosetum 287 has donated $5. Electric sharks can beat Trump at a policy debate.
That is true. That is very true. Thank you for the $5. But that's the whole point of Trump, though, is that he wants to avoid those types of policy debates. Like, he avoided every single question at the debate, and the debate host barely made a point of it at all. He just like pivoted to whatever he wanted to talk about and stayed like with a 10-foot pole away from a policy debate or like a numbers debate. And when Joe Biden tried to get into it, it just overcomplicated the situation for him, while Trump was trying to keep it simple. So even if, I will say that that's one thing Kamala Harris risks, is like, once you're getting into numbers, like, the performance you need to pull off is like a pyro, like, you have to like be doing some like backflips out there, like citing the numbers and such, while Donald Trump just needs to like call you like a crazy like trans immigrant.
He's now inched ahead in the key swing states. He's even with Trump in the national polls, and he's way ahead of Trump when it comes to approval.
Ludicrous, totally ludicrous. He's at 37% in a massive collection of polls. And so we found one exception to the rule. You know, you say I did 10 elections right. I counted. There's 18 elections since 1948. And there's only one exception to my key, my one key. But my one key of he's an incumbent in the 30s loses. I am willing to be objective and go, unless his opponent is in the 20s, right? But you seem immovable from your keys. And just a...
By the way, him saying his one key, I think he's like saying, look, you have all this complicated nonsense. I have one indicator, and it's the polls.
I'm not gay, but I love you. Yay, it's me, the same guy that commented the meme. And you even tweeted my comment, lol.
Thanks. I appreciate your non-gay love. Thank you for the $5. I can that threw me off. I have no clue what I'm even oh, the one key thing. The whole point of the 13 keys is that, like, again, I already said this, so I won't repeat it a third time, but is that there's multiple indicators allowing you to like read who is likely to win an election. One key isn't something to brag about. You're basically saying my extremely more reductive model. That is what Cenk's saying over and over. He's saying it's simple. I'd call it reductive and short-sighted. Like, for example, fundraising capacity is something that should be talked about in the campaign. And the fact that there might be some money from donors frozen from going to Biden, that's something that concerns me, considering how much Joe Biden has succeeded in fundraising in this election. Even if I don't really like how, you know, fundraising works in American elections. But like, that's a key that would not be indicated, and you're just, oh, wait a second, what about the post-DNC National Convention ad rush that's going to come out? That's not reflected in the polling data right now. There's just a bunch of stuff that's not reflected in the polling data. Don't brag about having a more reductive model.
Raw collection of keys. And then when you say things like, hey, if you lose the incumbency key or you lose the no contest key, that it's going to swing the election. Brother, that's correlation. That's not causation. You're making it sound like it's causation. Do you understand that critique?
Of course, I understand it, and it's not correct. I am not claiming that the keys are causative. I am claiming, and it's not just me, it's eminent political scientists, all the professional forecasters agree, and I laid out all the credentials for it. The keys are predictive, not causal, and they have a 40-year track record of prediction. And indeed, you know, Harry Truman did win when he was at 36%, and he didn't win marginally. He won by 5 points, and he brought back a Democratic Congress that the Democrats had lost in 1946. And when other candidates have been in the 30s, there's nothing to do with what the opposition was. The keys to the White House has not conflicted, has predicted their defeat.
All right, lastly, first of all, just real quick clarification.
In this case.
In 1948, the polling was so bad that they changed the methodology of polling after that presidential contest, because it was 1948. Okay, but last thing is this. Professor Lichtman, I say he has a near zero chance of winning and that he's going to drop out imminently, because there's, and even his own advisors say that he has a near 0% chance of winning. But you're saying not only is he going to stay in the race, but if things continue as they are, that he's going to win. So
I did not say that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Okay, so all right, so you want to do a fake prediction? Which do you want? Is Biden going to win or not? Because you're telling.
Hey, Dylan, been a while since I tuned in. Hope you're doing well. Thank you. I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
Going all over TV and selling copium to Blue MAGA, and they're like, oh, I heard from legendary Professor Lichtman that he should stay in the race and he's going to win. So is he going to win or isn't he? Let's get you on the record.
I feel like he doesn't understand like how the model works. It's predictive. It's not correlative. He can't say for sure that he's going to win, and it's also too far out to say, because there's so much that can happen between now and when the nominee is chosen. I mean, he could still be switched out, but like as of right now, he has the majority of the keys. If he keeps the majority, for example, if the war in Ukraine was to, if Ukraine collapsed tomorrow, it's not going to happen. But if it did, then that would be a key that'd be knocked down. The situation would change. Like if there was an economic crisis in the next 3 months, then that would knock down one of the keys for Biden as well, which is the economy's improving, inflation coming down, etc. Like so he can't say for sure that Biden's going to win. He's talking about his predictive model and how switching out to Kamala Harris, getting rid of the incumbency key, possibly getting rid of the no contest key. And if you go through to somebody like Gavin Newsom, oh my, not even talking about fundraising, etc. And not to mention that if a scandal pops out of one of these new nominees, then you knock down the scandal key as well. If you don't consider the age and knocking down of the scandal key in and of itself. The point is, though, again, it's not about here is who's going to win. It's a question of by making this change, he believes under his model, it makes it more difficult for Democrats to win because they're going to have less of the tools necessary needed to win from a historical predictive point of view. That's how he's going at this. It's not Joe Biden is going to win. Anybody that says Joe Biden is going to win is I mean, you can't say that. You can't say that right now. You can't make that prediction. Just like anybody saying Joe Biden has no chance of winning. You also can't make that prediction. I mean, Donald Trump has multiple court cases open against him. He's a convicted felon. He's been president before. There's never been a situation where an incumbent president is having a former president run against him in this manner, certainly under these circumstances. Like, there's a lot of unknowns here.
Said he was going to win. What I said was I will make a final prediction after the Democratic convention in August.
That's.
And did you see the NPR poll that said that their odds haven't changed at all? I saw the NPR poll. It had Biden up, I think, like 1 point, maybe 2. But of course, like, Biden could be up nationally in the polling. Like Hillary won the nationals election, like when it came to like the amount of votes, popular vote, but then she lost in the states that were necessary. And when you're talking about like 20,000 votes, 30,000 votes here or there in Georgia, that's the type of stuff that can change election outcomes, especially with a race that looks like it's going to be as tight as it is. And with, with how divisive that these elections can get in the aftermath, as we saw last time.
I will make a final prediction after the Democratic convention in August.
That's pretty convenient.
If you check off whether it's Biden or if Biden resigns the presidency, it's Kamala Harris, a plan B. If you check off the incumbency key and the contest key, a lot would have to go wrong for the Democrats to lose.
All right,
let me finish.
Yeah.
That's a 40-year record, and polls 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, even weeks before the election are not predictable. The worst debate in history was not Joe Biden. It was Barack Obama in his first debate against Romney when only 20% thought he won. 33%.
So, okay, I got it. You're going to...
There was a 12-point swing.
Barack Obama and Joe Biden are not the same. You don't have eyes.
Let me finish. Don't talk over me. Romney went from...
I'm sorry, we were just going by Cenk's one key. Why can't we go by Cenk's one key?
-8 to +4, and all the same off the top of their head, no scientific basis, pundits were pronouncing Barack Obama dead. And that was a...
By the way, this is not science either. I mean, you can say political science is a science if you want to, but this isn't a science either. I mean, I don't know what he means by science, but there's like a predictive he's noticing historical trends, pointing them out and modeling them. And then trying to use that to make predictions. That's what he's doing. But when he said, like, it's political science, but not like it's not like he got the test tubes out and it was like, oh, we added 1 + 1 and said Biden's gonna win.
Pundits were pronouncing Barack Obama dead, and that was a poll just a few weeks before the election.
I said that debate was irrelevant because Barack Obama was strong, and the context of Barack Obama was an incredibly strong candidate. The context of Biden is that he can't remember any words. He thinks he was the first black woman to serve with the first black president. He says he's the goodest president there is. You can't. He calls Zelensky. All right. Bottom line, you're squirming out and saying, okay, well, you know what? Let me retract that. Maybe you pick it after the conventions. No, to be fair to you. Maybe you pick it after the conventions, no problem, okay? But I'm trying to get you on the record here because you want to have it both ways. So if I'm right, Joe Biden's going to drop out before the convention because it's that disastrous. And if you're right, there's no way he would. Hold on, let me finish the sentence. So if you're right, there's no way he would drop out because he's about to win. So if he drops out before the convention, will you say, Cenk was right, I was wrong?
No. First of all, you predicted he'd drop out a week ago, and my analysis has nothing to do with whether he will drop out or not. That's up to him, and he could be pressured by Democrats who have no notion of who's electable. You know, for years, Democrats have said, we've nominated wonderful electable, experience proven candidates like Walter Mondale in '84, former vice president, Mike Dukakis, the great governor of Massachusetts in '88, the great John Kerry, senator in '84, the former first lady, U.S. senator, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Yep.
And what do they all have in common? They've all lost. So, yes, the Democrats foolishly could push Biden out, but I told you, I have a plan B, and that would be to preserve the two keys for the good of the country. If he's pushed out, he could resign.
Yeah.
Kamala would become president, tick off the incumbency key, and tick off the contest key. So I'm not, you know, shilling for Biden, and I'm not biased. I have predicted as many Republican as Democratic victories, including Donald Trump in 2016, which did not make me very popular in 90% plus Democratic Washington, D.C., where I teach at American University.
Yeah. So you forgot Kamala Harris's word salad key. But I hear you, brother. You're clear. I'm clear. He's going to drop out before the convention because, as his advisor said, he has a near 0% chance of winning, exactly what I've been saying all along. So we'll see who's right about that. All right, Professor Allan Lichtman, thank you for being a good sport. 0%
chance of beating Trump in 220.
I did not say that. You totally made that up. I said that I was worried about him in the primaries, and I was right to be worried. He nearly lost the whole thing. Any other Democrat would have been better. And in the general election, I was wrong because I thought Biden would blow out Donald Trump. I actually overestimated Biden, but I'm honest about my analysis, and I give people the entire context so they can see it for themselves. You seem to be dug in on your position, but we've already aired that out. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate that you...
Ghost of Nestor Machno has donated $5. Cenk is a asterisk, 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 asterisk. The professor is a crank.
Wow. Okay. With two L's. L's for both of them. My final takeaway is this. I think Cenk's model is very reductive. I think he gets Cenk could get swept up a little bit in the moment, while Lichtman's model, I think, is also, even though it's less reductive than Cenk's, can also be reductive. And yeah, there's going to be factors that he hasn't accounted for. Again, you can only get a sample size for his model every 4 years. If they were able to, like, if they had like 100, 200, 300 elections that they could model off of, maybe you could even have a stronger key system, a stronger data to pull from, but he doesn't. So he has to do the best he can with the elections that he has. And so he's made the 13 keys. But there's going to be circumstances like an incumbent president having to run against a former president, while both of them are historically unpopular and both of them have a majority of Americans saying that they're unfit for office, while they're both in their upper 70s and to early 80s. Like, this is like, we're in some pretty unprecedented territory. Definitely when you talk about like the political rhetoric that the country's in and the amount of fundraising money that's going to be at the disposal of both campaigns and the type of campaign that Donald Trump is running. So it just... obviously, the circumstances have not necessarily played out before. And so he's going to be in some amount of unexplored territory that his keys are not going to be able to cover for. He also did pick polls that favored...
The thing is, none of this is statistically tested. It's literally pseudoscience.
He picked polls that were favorable to his model from recent polling. And there were recent polls that were good for Biden, but there's also recent polls that were bad for Biden.
Is occurred.
Voss just wrote Lichtman off as a MLM salesman type. What's your overall opinion on him? I mean, I don't have much of a stronger opinion on him. I think like a lot of times with these models that aren't sciences, like my main experiences with international relations, IR theory, like if somebody's selling you the realist model or whatever their model is, you should look at it as a lens to view the world, but not your only lens to view the world. I think the 13 keys is one lens to view electability, and it makes you start thinking about things like, oh snap, scandals, oh snap, this is going to make me think about the foreign policy angle of it. It makes you start thinking of it from a historical perspective and what type of presidencies and what type of administrations and are the ones that win. The ones that win re-election, the ones that get hoisted into office, what type of candidates win, what type of candidates lose. And that's why it's useful. But using it as a one-to-one, not like predictive, but like correlative, like if you have 7 keys, you will be president of the United States, especially when a key could hypothetically go down literally a week before the election. Imagine Biden somehow like loses the war in Ukraine a week before election day. Obviously that could have a massive impact on who wins and who loses. Like someone could say that Hillary Clinton has the scandal key getting knocked down in the last 2 weeks of the election by James Comey reopening the investigation into her campaign. So not only is the model like flexible in these ways, because like things could change at last second, that makes like predicting like this far out impossible, and why Allan Lichtman cannot tell you that Biden is going to win. But also, I just think that it hasn't like tested all environments, because it literally, and it's not Allan's fault. It's just that he only has like a certain sample size that he can only collect from every 4 years. I mean, I still think that Allan Lichtman did better than Cenk in this debate. I think he defended his 13 keys well. I don't think Cenk really hit his 13 keys, like any of them particularly, or other keys that he thinks that need to be included. The only thing he fought over him with was really polling and the fact that he's like old, but even get into like the strong effects of that age in depth. Yeah, I would say Allan Lichtman performed better here, but I'm not much more convinced of his keys, but I still view it as like a good lens to look at elections. But a lens that is predictive in the moment, a snapshot, if you will. I watched his after stream and he just came across extremely smug and angry that Democrats weren't falling behind like Republicans do for Trump. Biden like Republicans do for Trump. I mean, like we all saw how Mearsheimer got really, and I don't mean to be mean to Allan Lichtman, I don't know Allan Lichtman enough, but how Mearsheimer kind of got stuck in his own models and the way he drew the world so much that when there was contradictory information from either how the Ukrainian military was performing or the domestic factors in Ukraine, like he just kind of overlooked them. It didn't match into his model. It didn't feed into his model. And so the information was not valuable, and therefore he made a bad prediction. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen with Allan Lichtman, but what I am saying is that people can get kind of caught up in their own models quite a lot. I do think he did better than Cenk, because Cenk always has to be cuntish when arguing, and it always undercuts his arguments because nobody likes emotional outbursts the way Cenk does. Yeah, no, he aims for a certain audience, but the type of like the outburst that Cenk does on a lot of these alternative sites or on like Piers Morgan's show, I think it plays to a certain audience, but not the majority of people. I don't belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat. I think I'm going to throw you guys. I think I'm going to throw you guys